The NBA is unforgiving. One day you're the next big thing, the kid every scout believes will reshape the league. But the moment you stumble, the league doesn't pause. It doesn't give you time to recover. It moves on. Some careers break under injuries. Others collapse under pressure. Some fall apart because of bad timing, bad teams, or bad luck. And some players rise too fast before they ever learn how to stay at the top. Today, we revisit the names who once electrified the NBA, players who carried hype, talent, swagger, and potential, until everything changed. And it all begins with a prodigy once compared to LeBron James himself. Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. had all the ingredients of a future superstar. Standing at 6'10" with guard-like ball skills and a jumper smooth enough to make veterans nervous, he was the number one high school player in the nation. Analysts weren't comparing him to good players, they were comparing him to generational ones. But just as his NBA future was forming, a severe back injury sent shockwaves through the league. Teams didn't doubt his talent, they doubted whether his body would survive. He slipped to the 14th pick, a fall fueled by fear rather than skill. When he finally played for Denver, he showed flashes of brilliance, effortless shooting, rare size, stretches of pure dominance. But consistency never arrived. Some nights he looked unstoppable. Other nights he disappeared. And always lingering in the background was the question, will his back fail him again? Today, Porter's a champion and a starter, but that predicted superstardom, the comparisons to KD and LeBron, never fully materialized. Instead of a franchise savior, he became a long-term what-if. Mohamed Bamba. Mo Bamba entered the league with one of the most absurd physical profiles in NBA history, a 7-foot frame and a 7'10" wingspan. His measurements alone made scouts salivate. Add in a viral anthem with his name, the hype was unreal. Orlando drafted him to be their future anchor, a modern center who could block shots and hit threes, but the on-court results never matched the promise. He struggled for minutes, battled injuries, and failed to separate himself from other bigs in the rotation. His highlights showed flashes of a unicorn. The rest of his game showed inconsistency. He became the player too talented to give up on, but too unreliable to depend on. Eventually, he bounced from Orlando to the Lakers, then to Philadelphia, then into the shadows of NBA rotations. He didn't bust. He faded. He became the type of player everyone knows but nobody truly sees anymore. Brandon Jennings, before LaMelo, before social media hype machines, before teenagers overseas became normal, there was Brandon Jennings, the original disruptor. He skipped college entirely and went straight to Europe, returning to the NBA with confidence, flair, and a lefty jumper built for highlights. And then it happened. A 55-point explosion as a rookie, one of the greatest scoring performances by a first-year player ever. He felt like a rising superstar, a scoring guard ready to dominate the next decade. But his game never stabilized. Efficiency was inconsistent. Decision-making wavered. His size limited him on defense. And eventually, injuries, especially the Achilles tear, took away the explosiveness that made him special. The league moved on quickly. He bounced between teams, then overseas, then back again, but the Lightning never returned. Jennings didn't fail because he wasn't skilled. He failed because the league evolved faster than he could adapt. Dennis Smith Jr. Dennis Smith Jr. entered the league as pure electricity, a guard who played above the rim with violence, quickness, and swagger. Dallas gave him the keys immediately, and he attacked defenders like the paint owed him money. He looked like the future. Then Luka Doncic arrived. Overnight, Smith went from cornerstone to surplus. The offense shifted around Luka's generational talent, and Smith became the odd man out. A trade to New York followed, and from there his career unraveled. Confidence dropped, roles changed, injuries stacked up. Teams stopped believing he could run an NBA offense. But Smith did something rare. He reinvented himself. He rebuilt his game around defense, toughness, and discipline. He became a fighter instead of a flyer. Even with the comeback, the superstar version of him, the Dennis Smith Jr. who felt like the next Westbrook, disappeared. He became a reminder of how brutally fast the NBA can change. John Wall. John Wall wasn't just fast, He was the definition of speed. When he entered the league, he moved like the court was tilted downhill and only he knew it. Defenders didn't just chase him, they feared being embarrassed by him. Wall was a franchise engine, a 5-time All-Star, a walking 20-10 machine who dragged Washington into relevance through pure determination. At his peak, he was unstoppable. His mid-range jumper found rhythm, his vision sharpened, and his leadership turned the Wizards into a playoff threat. Then everything collapsed at once. A heel injury took away his burst. An Achilles tear followed, one of the deadliest injuries in basketball. By the time Wall returned to the court, he was fighting not just opponents, but the ghosts of his former self. The explosiveness was slower, the confidence was shaken, and the league had moved into a new era where shooting mattered more than speed. Wall didn't lose his talent, he lost his timeline. He became a star built for an era that passed too quickly. Today, he's a veteran trying to reclaim a role, not the superstar who once sprinted past gravity. Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas didn't just play basketball, he defied it. At 5 feet 9 inches, he wasn't supposed to dominate anyone. But in Boston, he became a legend. Night after night, he lit up teams with impossible shots, fearless drives, and a heart that made the TD Garden feel alive. He wasn't just an all-star, he was an MVP candidate, a 29 points per game scorer. A man who carried a franchise while carrying the weight of losing his sister the night before the playoffs. But the NBA is cold. A hip injury changed everything. Boston traded him. Other teams didn't believe he could return to form. His size, once his magic, became the thing teams used against him. He bounced from team to team, fighting for minutes, fighting for contracts, fighting to matter again. He kept working, kept battling, kept trying to prove he still belonged. But the league doesn't care about what you did. It cares about what you can still do. DeMarcus Cousins. Before the injuries, before the chaos, before the heartbreak, DeMarcus Cousins was the most dominant big man in the NBA. Strength like a tank, footwork like a guard, touch soft enough to drop 40 without breaking a sweat. He wasn't just an all-star, and he was a force. Opponents couldn't guard him one-on-one. Double teams barely slowed him down. Sacramento never gave him the structure he deserved, but Cousins still put up numbers only legends produce. Then the avalanche came. A torn Achilles, a quad injury, a torn ACL. 3 brutal injuries in a row, each one taking away a piece of the dominance that made him special. Cousins tried to claw back with Golden State, then the Lakers, then Denver, then overseas, but the league no longer viewed him as a franchise cornerstone. And yet, the irony is painful. Cousins didn't lose his talent. He lost his mobility. He became another superstar trapped in a body that couldn't match his ambition anymore. A giant who fell not because of ego, but because of fate. Jabari Parker. Before the NBA, Jabari Parker was called a can't-miss prospect. Some scouts said he was the most polished teenage scorer since Carmelo Anthony. Milwaukee drafted him to be the face of their franchise. A smooth, powerful forward with elite footwork and natural scoring instincts. But injuries rewrote his story. A torn ACL. A second torn ACL. 2 devastating blows to a career that never had the chance to truly begin. Parker returned stronger both times, showing glimpses of brilliance. Mid-range mastery, bully ball finishes, and stretches where he looked like the player he was supposed to become. But teams no longer trusted his durability. He bounced from Chicago to Washington to Atlanta, then took a leap overseas to revive what was left of his career. If you want more deep dives into the hidden stories, the lost legends, and the players the NBA world ignored too soon, make sure to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us which forgotten NBA player we should cover next.